Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their journeys and their stories with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Deborah Thomas to the conversation. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you. Lovely to have you as well. As always, just very quickly, I'll introduce how we got to this recording. I'll let you do a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into the big conversation. But Deborah and I know each other through some client work that we've been doing, and actually, we did sit down and record an episode of a podcast for their internal work, which is amazing. And when we were talking and listening to the story, it was just apparent that I just need to share this with the rest of the world as well. So it's lovely. So I'm so happy to have you, Deborah. So I'll let you do a little introduction to yourself. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Deborah. I'm married to my amazing husband, who I will talk about a little bit later on. I work full time, as we've just mentioned. I do business travel as my job, and in my spare time, I take part in beauty pageants. And again, I'll talk a bit about that later.
Amazing. And we will definitely be delving into all of those pieces. I'm glad you said about your husband at the beginning as well. So you obviously, it's a really interesting connection that you have together as well. So
Yeah.
right, the big question, as always in these conversations, your journey, your story with mental health. You define what it is, where you start. Tell us a story. Tell us a little bit about your life, what's been going on.
So I ended up getting diagnosed with my mental health. So it was predominantly it ended up becoming suicidal thoughts. It was predominantly depression and anxiety. That kind of came on about sort of like back end of 2017, after coming out quite a tough relationship. I'd also suffered quite a lot of losses over the years leading up to that as well, due to some of my pets being really poorly, which was very, very strenuous. So I went through quite a lot with that. And I also lost one of my first grandparents in the years leading up to that as well. So I think for me, by the sort of like the back end of 2017, it was about October, it just got too much and it literally just broke me. So I was really struggling, but I didn't really notice. I just thought I was going through a bad time and didn't really notice that it was my mental health that was what the problem was at that time. So I didn't say anything. I just got on with my life, secretly struggling. And as I say, when I got to the point of contemplating suicide, that's when I realised on the day that I was going to do it that I was then needing help. I thought, that's it. It's gone way too far. I'm clearly not okay. I need to get help. So it was a lot of things that just piled up and literally just, it got too much and I just broke.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful things, and thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
moment. So we're breaking this down into little bits for this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, because I think there's a wonderful sort of
A lot.
development in the story,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about finding that help at that moment where you felt so low?
Yeah. So at that moment in time, I was running a bath because I wanted one anyway. And that's when I thought to myself what it was I was going to do.
Yeah.
Um, and like sat on the floor crying my eyes out for whatever reason it was. And then, as I say, I realized that I wasn't okay. So I went online and I kind of had a look at how it is that you were to get help. I did the CBT, which again, I still cannot remember what it's called. I just know it's those letters.
Yep.
And then realized what it was that I was feeling. And then it directed me then to contact my GP. My
Okay.
GP then referred me to do some counselling. So I contacted Stockport Women's Health, I believe they're
Okay.
called.
Right.
And I did some counselling sessions with them. And through them helping me and guiding me through everything that I'd gone through in the past and how to work on things in the future, it really helped me settle what it was that was going on. And as I say, and obviously mentioned my husband, if it wasn't for him coming into my life at that time,
Right.
the story would be completely different.
Well, yeah, and interesting, isn't it? It would, yeah, you're
Mm.
right. It would be, and you're in that moment where there is a choice, isn't there? It's one or the
Yeah.
other, and thankfully, I'm really
Mm.
happy to hear you went forward to seek the support and help that you could find,
Mm.
which is sounds like it's it's helped you significantly
Yeah.
in that. Just
It
before
was
we go
strange.
on.
it was strange because I never thought I would be like that.
Yeah.
I've heard of stories, and I know one of my friends sadly took her own life as well. So,
Right.
you know, I never thought I'd ever get in that situation. And then when I found that I was in that situation, then I realized this isn't who I am.
Yeah.
This isn't me.
Mm.
So that's why I obviously then looked at trying to sort it out.
Yeah, no, that's and again, I'm just really happy. And
Yeah.
CBT, by the way, is cognitive behavioral therapy. So yeah, there you go. So
I'll never remember that.
no, but
I'll
you
never.
know what? That's what it stands for. Just keep calling it CBT. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. Keep on calling it CBT.
Same
But just
lessons as a bike test. That's the only reason why I can remember it.
oh right, okay, fair enough. But just before we move on to the what happened next, meeting your husband and the other stuff, do you sort of going back through your life now that you understand a little bit more about mental health, obviously through the journey you've been through, you understand a lot more. Do you recognize anything in your life prior to 2017 that would have been things weren't going so well or things weren't looking so good for you in those moments?
Yeah, I mean, I'd gone through a couple of relationships over the years that were not good.
Yeah.
I got in situations that I should have called it quits long before it got to those situations, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So going through that, like I say, everyone goes through bad relationships and all that sort of stuff, but I kind of coupled that with the amount of loss that I had in such a short space of time. I mean, like I say, my animals are my life. They're always my constant. And the fact that I lost about 4 within 4 years and 2 within 1 year, like in the same year, as well as all the relationship drama, it just got too much. And then obviously I lost my granddad. And like I say, he was the first one of my grandparents that I lost. And again, I don't think at that time I realized how much of an impact that actually had on me. I put a lot of pressure on myself, as a lot of women do, to wanting to start in families. So, because for me, a little background on that is I knew some of my great grandparents, and I always wanted to start my family young enough, not too young, obviously, but young enough that my children would know their great grandparents. And I had all of mine at the time.
Wow.
So I put that pressure on myself. But because of where I was in my relationship at the time, I wasn't with the partner that I was with at the time. That my granddad passed. And then obviously when he passed, I again put even more pressure on myself because I felt as though I'd failed. And I don't know whether people can relate to that or understand that, but that was something that I had a whole lot of pressure on because I wanted that. That was something I really, really needed. And I failed at getting that.
Right.
So I think that, on top of everything, like I say, although I don't really talk about that too much, but that is what it is. That's probably the start.
Right.
Is that, and then sort of like everything kind of followed after that. So that I would probably say, as much as I don't realize it, I would say that that was the start of everything going bad.
Well, things started to come apart a little bit there, it sounds like, from where you wanted to be in this space where you had a vision and a plan and a thought and something to do.
Yeah, I had this little perfect life. I was happy with the partner I was with. I was hoping it was going to be, wedding bells and kids, and I'd fulfill this dream that I had. And then I wasn't with the partner. I lost my granddad. I lost my dream, and I didn't know what to do. Like say, I broke in a sense that I didn't know how to recover from that. And I struggled a long time. Again, silently, I struggled with that realization. And then, like say, everything after that just piled on top of it, and just eventually I broke.
Wow. And I think it's, I think it's great that you can put words and thoughts around what was going on and what was happening, because a lot of people struggle to realize or think about, actually the impact of all of those things cumulatively is quite heavy, isn't it? And if you think about the depression pushing you down, everything is pushing you down every time you're trying to get back up. And it's almost like you're getting a sucker punch every time something's happening. we went to 2017. Obviously, you got help, support, and then somewhere in this story, a man arrives, your
Yes.
husband. Tell us a
Yes.
story about that, and tell us how that all came out. You're giggling. You're obviously still, still very much in love.
Yeah, it's just the best.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually start getting my help until 2018.
Okay.
So it was sort of like the back end of 2017 when everything went wrong. It was more in the new year that I started getting the help.
Sure.
In the meantime to that was when I took part in my first beauty pageant. I did a photo shoot first, which led me to how I found out about the beauty pageants. That was just for fun. There was no other reason for me to do it. I just thought, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do something different. And that was the Miss Galaxy United Kingdom pageant, who I'll be forever grateful for because they started on my pageant journey, so they get a huge credit. And so when I took part in them, I joined them in 2018. And my first finals with them was in the March of 2019. Like I say, things kind of progressed over those times, like while I was dealing with everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And then I was very, very honoured to have placed top 10 in the UK for my first ever time. And it's a very, very difficult pageant to do.
Okay.
So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try it again. So I got my new sash for the year. And at the time, I worked for a different business travel consultant company whose chosen charity is Macmillan. And as part of Pageantry, it's not all about the fancy dresses and the pretty hair and makeup and prancing around on stage. It is what we do in the background. So a lot of charity work. A lot of stuff is also built up around mental health as well. We do everything, spread awareness for campaigns, spread awareness for charities, you name it, we get our hands in and we can help as much as we can. And that is, like I say, what people don't necessarily see about the pageant world.
Yep.
So as I say, the company I worked for had a football club as one of its clients. And every Friday it was dress down day and we weren't allowed to wear football gear. I am not a football fan. I hate everything about it. Criticize me all you want.
Recording during the World Cup. Thank you. Yeah.
No, I can't stand it.
Fine.
And so on the Friday, we were allowed to wear a football shirt. So I went to my dad and said, right, I need a football shirt.
Yeah.
God help me. I'm going to do it. So he gave me one of his very, very old Manchester City football shirts that's older than I am.
Right.
Because it would fit me. So it was like something like from 1985 or 86 or something along those lines. So I wrapped up in work on Friday wearing this City shirt, supporting Macmillan because it was all linking in, because on the Saturday we had a family football fun day at Manchester City's academy.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to suck it up. I am going to go. I'm going to be there. I hate everything about football, but I am going to go. I am going to represent my company, the charity, and my pageant system, which again was Galaxy at the time. So I went and I was talking to one of the stewards, who is now a good friend of mine, and up walks this man and one of the event organisers, and we just started talking. And when you know when you just know.
Yeah.
You just know that something's there, but you can't quite put your words on what it is, but you know that something's there.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what it felt like. And then, cutting a very long story short,
right.
I got a cup of tea and a biscuit out of it, so I was very happy. My mum and my dad came with my nephew, and they got to meet him as well. My dad was like, "Oh, so how long have you two known each other?" And I'm like, about 3 hours.
Right.
Something like that. My dad thought we'd known each other for a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
I literally, it's been hours. Like, I barely know the guy, but I'm like, okay, cool. So something must be there. We must have a really good connection for people to assume that so soon. So again, cutting a long story short, we swapped numbers. We spent all day the following day on the Sunday texting, arranged to meet up on the Friday after work for a date, which, mind you, I was very, very nervous for.
Yep.
and we've practically been inseparable since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And now we're happily married, and yeah, everything's great.
You've got through the COVID lockdowns and everything else. That's a big
Yeah,
test,
well,
right?
he had to move in with me, so that was a
Right.
good like test
Test
of
for the
whether we could
relationship,
do
yeah.
it, because we literally got together, and I met him on the 22nd of June.
Right.
We officially became a couple beginning of July, so
Right.
we weren't dating for very long before it became official. And that was like July 2019, and by March 2020 he moved in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then was with me throughout the,
And then he was locked in.
Yeah, he was literally locked in with me, so they
Wow.
literally made it or broke it. Because we both lived alone. He lived in a one-bed apartment in Manchester with no outdoor space, so why both be apart when we could just live with each other?
Wow.
And yeah, he hasn't left since.
Does
He
he?
hasn't left.
Does he?
And he tried, but
Oh, bless you. So I love it. What a wonderful what a wonderful romance, and where you've been on that.
Exactly. And it was like, because obviously at that point I was going through my counselling, so obviously I was on a wait list for a while. Yeah, so obviously, like I say, it was 2018 when I started to get everything in motion, but it was sort of like the back end of 2018 into 19 when I was starting having my counselling sessions. So it was while I was having those sessions was when I met Mark. So I remember saying the last time we spoke that, like, I remember being in my session on the Tuesday, crying my eyes out about my ex, who obviously was when everything really became apparent that something was wrong mentally with me, and crying my eyes out about him, saying how much I missed him, which gladly things have changed and I don't anymore. And then literally met Mark on the Saturday. By the following Tuesday, I was back in my session going, you're never going to believe who I've met. I am so happy, and things have changed like
Amazing,
an instant. And like I say, he will never understand how much credit he gets for that.
Yeah, he was
so much credit.
He arrived at the time you needed him to arrive, right? It was like it feels like the knight in shining armor came and saved you.
Yeah,
you know, and
that's
what
what's
it feels
strange,
like,
right? And we still don't understand how it works, but we have both been at the same places, just at different times.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, there's a pub that I used to frequent when I was many years younger, and it turns out that he used to go in the pub at the same time.
Okay.
But we never met.
Right.
Never. Yep. Don't know whether we ever saw each other, but there would have been an occasion where we were both in that pub at the same time.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But then what makes it strange is where he was working at the time is in a mill, which has obviously been broken down into different sections, and different companies work out this mill. So he was working with a company at one time in that mill.
Yep.
But what's strange about it is the gymnastics club that I was with from when I was just before I turned 16 through to when I retired when I was 17, before starting to go to the pub when I was old enough.
Yeah.
It was in the exact same mill.
Wow.
But like say, we were in the same place at either the same time, but just a different part in our lives. Or like, I used to go to one place where many years prior, because he's older than I am by 7 years, so he used to be there at a different point in time than me. Yeah. So I think the word's kismet, is that the word I'm thinking of?
The word was where,
I think, is it called kismet? I think it is, where two people are sort of like destined to be with each other.
Okay, no, I'm not sure.
That's weird. I could be wrong on the word.
Yeah,
I might have to look at that. But yeah, I think we were potentially destined to be with each other. I think somewhere, someone made us to be with each other, and it just we both had to go through our crap,
and then eventually it would happen, and it would happen.
Exactly. Because I remember our first date, we literally sat there. I laid all my baggage on the table. He laid all his on the table, and it's like, can you deal with it or can't you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And yeah.
And how? So I find that fascinating, because it's that how how quickly did you open up and tell somebody what's really going on, what's really
Yeah,
happened? So did you sort of lay everything out on that table at that moment?
literally everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Everything, like all about my ex, because obviously that's where my head
Yeah.
was still at while
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
meeting him.
Yeah.
So he knew all about that. I knew about the current situation that he had going on,
Sure.
which was very big. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about that
No.
because that's not my place
No.
to discuss. But he had to be there and to support somebody else that was in his past at the time.
Yeah.
So he needed someone to fall back on while he was helping them through what they were going through. So here's me dealing with my depression, my anxiety, my suicidal thoughts at the time through my own dramas and baggage and history. But then having someone who I've literally just met needing to rely on me for support. And I took that on. And, I'm glad that I did, because, like I say, I wouldn't be here now and happily married to him.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and it's brilliant. And I really love that. And I think that shows a real value to the strength of relationships as well, and I think that's when you have an open communication within the relationship, it makes it so much easier to get along. If you hide things and pretend it's all fine, and which is unfortunately what many people are doing, they're just sort of glossing over the dark things because they don't want people to see it. And I hear that a lot from people in other spaces, especially around Samaritan's World, where people just can't talk to their partners or to their friends. I want to explore a little bit, changing the dial slightly, the pageantry stuff, because obviously that's now a big part of your life as well, something that you're very passionate about. And you're wearing a sash, and for anybody that isn't watching, you are wearing a sash. Tell us about what you're wearing, of course, and a little bit more about this pageantry stuff.
So the current system that I am with is Miss Atlantic, United Kingdom. This is my second year competing with them as a Mrs. Last year, although it's technically April of this year, was my first year competing as a Mrs. So obviously getting married in September of 2021, competing for the first time as a Mrs. was a huge deal for me, because as you can imagine, I've always wanted to be married, all that sort of stuff. Never thought it was going to happen. So when it did happen, I wanted to just share it with the world. So I will get my sash out at any point, just because it represents the fact that I am a Mrs. and it means so much to me to be one, and also to represent the system. So as I mentioned, doesn't matter what system you're with. Like I say, I've been with the Galaxy system. I'm now with the Atlantic system. There are many different pageant systems out there. People probably know more of like Miss Universe, Miss Earth, all the really, really big ones. I'm too old for those, by the way.
Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, it happens. There's reasons behind it before anyone starts questioning and saying that's not fair. There's reasons behind it.
Of course.
Okay. Which again, if anyone wants to talk to me about pageants, just find me, message me, whatever. I can talk through that. But as I mentioned before, we do so much in the background of pageantry that represents the system, what it stands for, all the charity work, the awareness days that we share, and we support each other. For me at the moment, which I carried on from last year, I'm trying to do what I have my own campaign called Grow Your Own, Pick Your Own, and Make Your Own.
Okay.
And that is basically trying to support and share to people that you can grow your own fruit and vegetables. The enjoyment that you get from picking those fruits and vegetables, because believe you me, I have never been so excited to grow pumpkins and sweet corn and sunflowers, because just the sheer excitement of every day watching it grow is just ridiculous. But then the part about making your own, and that to me, as well as the challenge of growing your own fruit and veg, the making something with it can also be a challenge. And it's also supposed to be fun. So whatever it is that you grow and you pick, find something that you can make with it. And it might go wrong. Believe you and me, the amount of stuff I've grown and I've made something and I've gone, oh, well, that didn't work.
Right.
I've thrown it out and I've had to wait a whole nother year to start it again,
Oh,
sort of
wow.
thing.
Okay.
So, it's one of those things, but it's also one to help the environment,
Yep.
because obviously we need as many plants that we can in the world to obviously help with, the carbon, whatever it is that people talk about that is
Yep.
going out my head. So not very good here.
Right.
But all to do with the environment. Like I say, my brain's gone a bit mush tonight. So obviously it's trying to support all of that. It's also there to help you both physically and mentally as well.
Yeah.
Because like you say, your physical health plays a big part in your mental health and vice versa. So
Yep.
by being out in the garden, physically getting your body moving by digging and planting and this, that, and the other that comes with being in the garden. Even nowadays, having to go out and pick all the leaves up and all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. It's physically getting you going,
Yeah.
getting you out, keeping your mind active. And then, like I say, coming to the growing part is the fact of the enjoyment of trying to make something with something that you've grown. So for me, I predominantly do like jams and chutneys and things like that with all the
Okay.
fruit and veg that I grow.
Yep.
Not all of it. We get some freshly grown fruit and veg from a company called Rhubarbs as well. So any
Okay.
fruit and veg that they give us or that we purchase from them, we try and do things with as well. Again, with store-bought stuff, we try and keep everything within the UK. We try and get things that are coming to the end of their sell-by date. So rather than being thrown away to landfill, we try and take it, try and make something with it. So a lot of things are jams because they can be preserved.
Yeah, sure.
And now we're going to try and start doing a little bit more on the alcohol side. And we're currently trying for the first time rhubarb gin. And in the new year, we need to force some rhubarb so we can get the young, fresh stalks, so we can try a rhubarb wine because you need really fresh, young rhubarb for that.
Wow.
So we're trying new things. That's
Yeah.
more Mark, because not my thing. But between us, we're doing it. And again, when I did my finals in April, we have an interview. So again, it's something that you don't see on the stage. It's all back, in the background where you speak to the judges about your journey. And last year, I remember, it wasn't last year, it was April. I got into my interview and I just started crying.
Right.
Like as soon as I started talking, because my passion behind my campaign all came from Mark. And it's something that we share together and that we do together.
Yeah.
And I was actually able to finally voice it to the people that it needed to go to. As I say, they were the judges. They were judging me on what I had done. And obviously with Mark, it was just such a big thing for me to finally say my piece about what I'd done. And obviously, again, I'm doing it again this year.
Yeah.
So my outfits for my finals is going to try and link in with that a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Wow, it's amazing. What a lovely story to wrap into that as well, and everything feels for me it's in the right direction for you at the moment, and I love that thought, I really do. And you've come such a way in a short space of time, to go from those dark depths of depression and suicidal thoughts to now, doing this campaigning and the pageantry stuff and the relationship, of course. And I just think that's amazing. I really do. I'm really proud of the journey you've been on, in the way that you've got a big smile on your face as well, and you're laughing now. So, that's a positive. And we are right at the end of this though, Deborah, in the sense we almost half an hour.
Enough.
It's never enough, is it? When we recorded last time, it was supposed to be 10 minutes. It ended up at 15. This is now we're at half an hour. But I like to just sort of offer one final thought from you, just share with others out there who might be going through a very similar experiences, different life events that are cumulatively impacting on what's going on. Final thoughts from you, just let you say whatever you want to say to people.
So I would always say to people to reach out. If you've not got a family member that you can speak to, maybe a friend, not a friend, CTGP, anybody, reach out to anyone. I've always said to anyone, if you want to talk to me about what you're going through, I'm always open to listen and to help and to guide. I've got no problems in doing that. don't feel ashamed about talking about what you're going through.
Yeah.
Feel empowered by opening up and sharing your journey.
It's always good timing to lose the internet connection there. I'm not sure where Deborah's gone to. I'm not sure if she's still there. I think she was talking about sharing her journey. At the end of these conversations, it's always useful for us to just sort of close with final thoughts. And an apology for anybody that is still listening for the loss of Deborah right at the end there. It's always great timing because we don't edit these, so I can't just edit in or edit out a piece of time in the middle of this. But it looks like Deborah's now reconnecting. Deborah?
I am.
You are reconnecting. It's all right. We lost you at the moment, and I was just filling there because I was hopeful we get you back. So apologies to anybody that's listening. There was a bit of a disruption to service there, which is the beauty of recording everything live without any breaks and without any editing. So
typical my internet connection.
You know what? The best thing is we got the biggest piece of it out, didn't we? We got the biggest part of it out. But Deborah, any final thoughts? You're freezing again. So I think we're probably it's a metaphor for life. We probably got to the end of it. Don't worry, it's not a problem.
No, I was at the end of my sentence anyway. So as I say, just reach out to people, find someone to voice your concerns with, and just be empowered to become a stronger person.
Brilliant.
By doing it.
I love that. Full stop. That was the end of the sentence.
Done.
Yeah, amazing. Look, for everybody that's listening still, if you are still listening, if we didn't lose you in that middle piece where we lost things for a moment, always know there are people out there who are, there to support you. And that's so important to always remind yourself, whether that's through systems you might already have in place at work, whether that's a colleague, a family member, a friend. Of course, there's many organizations out there as well that exist. And I know you did a little bit of searching online, and organizations like Samaritans. I always talk about Samaritans. They're always there to help you in a safe space if you want to talk. Telephone number's free, 116-123. You can text to shout 85258. There is also another resource that I'm going to start introducing more too, which is called the Hub of Hope. Go and take a look at it if anybody out there is still listening. The Hub of Hope is a really useful resource to connect you to localized resources, groups, and places where you can find extra help and support for things you might be going through. So please take notice of the resources that are already available and out there. So Deborah, I don't know if you can still hear me. I know you're sort of in and out coming. You're doing the hokey cokey with me here, which is fantastic. So I'm not sure if dancing's part of the pageantry, but maybe it's introducing it as yeah, amazing. Well,
I have no idea what's going on with my internet all of a sudden, but it's just typical.
Fear not, we're at the end now. So amazing stuff. Listen, thank you so much for sharing your story with me, and I really hope wish you all the very best with the pageantry. Wish you all the very best for the the continuation of your very strong and loving relationship, and I look forward to sort of following your progress. Enjoy.
Definitely. Thank you.
Take care.